Beach House and Ball. Part of me is I'm going to be at a lot of these Capitals games coming up. We'll be broadcasting from Toronto next week. The Red Sox are up there. The Orioles are there on Sunday and the weekend as well. But man, in D.C., these reporters down there got it going crazy. Not only just Nationals going on, but the Capitals and the Wizards. This guy covers sort of all of it at WTOP down in Washington. It is a busy, busy time for Dave Preston. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at DavPresto as well. And much like the rest of us, we better get some remote control and some picture-in-picture and some multiple screen and one game on the phone and one game on the iPad. Dave, this is going to be a little bit of a ride here because I'm expecting the Caps and the Wizards to win a little bit here.
And it would be the first time that a Washington pro team would get into its respective Final Four since the Redskins of 1991, the ones that beat the Bills in the Super Bowl. Since then, obviously DC United has played well. The Washington Castles are a dynasty, but to have a Big Four team reach the Final Four, that hasn't happened in such a long time. This area is really hungry for a winner, especially with all the burgundy and gold soap opera stuff, especially with the recent heartbreak of the Washington Nationals the last couple of Octobers.
Well, we up here love when the Redskins fans are crying burgundy and gold. I have no use at all for the Washington Nationals for me, but I'm a Caps fan, and I've always been a Caps fan. And, the Wizards, it's funny, I don't know that the Wizards have had a tremendous fan base there at all since they moved into the city 20 years ago. And even with the playoff teams the last couple of years, this year, though, it does feel different. When you beat up on Cleveland, when you can hold your own with Golden State, you awaken the fan base in a way where if they make it to the finals and somehow skip LeBron, get through LeBron, drive them to 6 or 7 games, I don't think anybody would be shocked by that. This team has proven itself over the last 4 months.
It's been a fun team to watch, too. I mean, they got off to that horrible 2-8 start. Granted, it was a very tough November schedule there, Nestor, but they kept it. They didn't take care of things in the newspapers. Coach Scott Brooks got this team on the right page and had them believing in themselves. And when this team plays solid defense for 48 minutes, which hasn't happened in stretches the last couple of weeks, but when they're on defensively, they're as good as anybody in the Eastern Conference, and against a Cleveland team that's still, I think, fighting off the extra games played last year, fighting off the extra games played the year before. There's something to be said about it's sort of a jet lag, if you will, when you've played 90 to 100 games consistently the last couple of years, that's been the case for the Cavaliers since LeBron James returned to the shores of Lake Erie. They could be ripe for the picking, even though in the NBA it's often the best team, the best player, they advance. But you can't not be confident in this Washington Wizards team as they prepare for what could be a historic playoff run.
Well, and then there's who the matchups are going to be. And I know all last week we were wondering, was it going to be Ottawa? Was it going to be the Bruins? Was it going to be the Maple Leafs? That's sort of what's going on at this point. And where they give Wall and Porter the night off on Monday night and sort of doing what everybody else is doing. And I know Ted was pretty outspoken about that a couple of weeks ago, not doing that. But the notion that the Atlanta Hawks could be the first opponent, that's not easy for them.
No, none of these matchups in that potential number 5 spot will be walkovers for this team. Milwaukee has played the Wizards well. So is Atlanta, and Atlanta didn't have Paul Millsap a couple of weeks ago. And the Wizards trailed early. They were able to win by 4, but it wasn't a clean game. It wasn't an easy victory. It was at home, and they didn't have their best offensive player. He will play. You can't imagine him not playing in a first-round playoff series. Plus, Dwight Howard in the pivot. That'll be a big test for Marcin Gortat, who really has not had a great season. I don't know if it's age or what have you. He's been solid in the post, but he hasn't been the Polish hammer that we got to know a couple of years ago when he would just go off from time to time.
What do you think of Barkley saying that Cleveland was wanted to avoid Washington? That's a funny statement, but into the 2 seed, if Boston winds up the 1, this this winds up being a way for the Wizards to avoid them as well, right?
Sometimes I just think Charles says stuff to say stuff. I think it.
And that's just in the commercials.
I think you've got a younger, hungrier team in the Wizards. You've got a really good backcourt that when both guys are healthy, This is a fantastic team. You've got guys who can shoot the three, and Porter and Morris on the perimeter. And you have to credit Ernie Grunfeld. A lot of people have been calling him out over the last 10 years, Nick Young, et cetera. But he really did a nice job in boosting this bench. Bogdanovich is a player off the pine. Jason Smith is a guy who has kind of reinvented his game, being a stretch four. He hit 5 threes just the other week, and obviously these guys are not going to be lights out every night, but that's why they're bench guys. But to have potential players off the bench like Bogdanovich, Oubre, even Mahinmi can block shots when need be in limited minutes. But this is a team that could push Cleveland, whether it's in the second round, whether it's in the Eastern Conference Finals. You almost would want to face Cleveland around earlier than later, because conventional wisdom is that if the Cavaliers, if LeBron if they're going to be surprised, it's going to be early, because once you get to that round of four, that Final Four, that Eastern Conference Finals, everybody will be locked in. All those playoff kinks and glitches will be smoothed out. The necessary rebooting will have already been done. But if you can sneak up on this team in maybe the Eastern Conference semis, steal a game in Cleveland where they have won this season, you could be writing an incredible Mace story here.
He is Dave Preston. You can follow his journey out at Dav Presto and at WTOP down in D.C. A busy person at this. One thing they can't do is play at the Verizon Center at the same time, right? They can play simultaneously, but not in the same place. The building's going to be buzzing down there, but there are going to be some nights where you got 3, 4. If you're a split Nationals-Orioles fan, not to mention lacrosse up in this part of the world, there are going to be some really busy nights here. I think the expectation level, though, is for the Caps, right? And look, I don't speak for somebody that lives in D.C. to know where the split feelings would be, but the Capitals are everyone's pick here as a two-time President's Trophy winner, and we've heard about the redemption tour and all that stuff. This is a pretty focused group right now. They're healthy. They've made it through this season, rested a little bit, especially on the top lines and what Trotz has done there. This is their tournament. It's their time, and more than that, and I feel this as a fan, this thing's about to get broken up. This is sort of last chance for this particular group.
I think you're absolutely right. I am on WTOP.com last year, and on my Preston's Perspective on WordPress.com, I went through the Capitals' heartbreaks and highlights over the years. Number one heartbreak remains that collapse in 2010 out of the Montreal Canadiens that really set the end of the Bruce Boudreau regime in motion. Highlight was their trip to the Stanley Cup Finals, where even subpar uniforms couldn't ruin a postseason run for that team. But you look at how this team has stumbled in previous springs. One year I compared it to the cherry blossoms, where it's the buzz in April and everybody's talking about it, and by May and June it's rained a couple times, and there's almost no resemblance of what was the postseason optimism that you had for the Caps, especially over the last 10 years. And last year's loss to Pittsburgh, Nestor, I think really stung from the standpoint that the 2009 Game 7 loss did not, because that team, you could argue that the best days of Ovi and Mike Green and Coach Boudreau, the best days of those guys were ahead of them. And right now you're looking at a window that is slowly closing. You can see the end of Alex Ovechkin, the end of Nicholas Backstrom's time skating together in Washington. It's a little bit off on the horizon, but you definitely can see it. Ovi's got gray hair. That's why last year's loss to Pittsburgh really stung with, and just outside of the smirking Sidney Crosby, we're not going to get into that, and the chippy play. But this is a team that has been built for the playoffs. This is a team with Coach Barry Trotz's style is meant to win and advance in May. And depending on the matchups, depending on how well they fare, they should get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think anything short of a Stanley Cup final will be disappointing. Anything short of an Eastern Conference Final appearance will be absolutely devastating for this team. And they're taking on a team that looks like the Caps of 7 or 8 years ago, a very young nucleus in Toronto. And if you want to talk about cities that have gone through it, the fact that Toronto has not won a Stanley Cup in 50 years is an absolute crime, absolute mismanagement, because they're an original six club, and with the size of the city there, with the money that they've got pumping in there, the fact that they've not won a cup in 50 years is an absolute crime. But they can win their cup a couple of years from now. But it's the Capitals stuff.
It's going to be electric up there. One of the reasons I'm going up there, and look, I've been doing this for a long, long time. I went to Nassau Coliseum in 1986 on the road. All those games up at the Spectrum, the Civic Arena up in Pittsburgh. I'm expecting the Toronto thing to be pretty oiled up on Monday. Now, that said, I expect the Caps to be up 2-0 by the time they get there. If it's 1-1, it'll be really oiled up on Monday. But that's the epicenter of hockey, and there's no place where hockey matters more than Toronto. This is a little bit of a hornet's nest from that perspective, I think. I think that's the part that gets heavy for the guys on the ice, because they're clearly the better team. I mean, no one will argue that. But the question would be, how are they going to handle that when they get up to Toronto? The place is all whited and blued up and breathing down on them in the early going on Monday night.
It's going to be a good starter series. It's a far cry from taking on, say, a Tampa Bay or a Carolina before they get out of town and move that franchise north of the border. This is going. If this team has been locked in, and this team has been all about redemption, and if there's any chance they're not, we're going to find that out over the next week, because this is a tough club, as all teams are once you get to this stage of the season, and they're young and they're hungry, and the Capitals are a little older, but they're still looking to put the final pieces together. It's going to be interesting to see if Carlson is able to play, as he's been banged up and a question mark. He should be good to go. Hopefully we'll get the Alex Ovechkin of last year's postseason that averaged a point a game, as opposed to previous Ovies that could kind of be semi-invisible. And hopefully the hot goaltenders wearing the Caps colors as opposed to somebody else's uniform.
Dave, you expect them to win the Stanley Cup Finals? In your heart of hearts, have you cleared your schedule into June the way I have?
Heart of hearts, I think if it's not going to happen this year, I can't see this club getting it done. I think they're going to get to the Cup Finals. I hope, again, with my heart of hearts, I hope they win the Stanley Cup. I think they get to the Cup Finals, and it'd be nice to see Ovi skate around with the Cup after all he's meant to this city and after all he's meant to this franchise.
Look at how ugly he's going to be if he grows that beard. I mean, he's going to look like a silver garden gnome by June 12th or whatever, right?
Yeah, and you know what really bothers me about these playoff beards? That was an Islanders thing back in the early '80s. They're the ones that started our former Patrick Division nemesis, and now everybody does the trendy beard thing. I also feel bad for the Scandinavians. I'm a quarter Scandinavian, Nestor, and it's all in the skin. So that means two things: I don't burn, I char when I go out into the sun, and two, I cannot grow a beard, or the beard that I grow, it looks like a bad isthmus. It doesn't fill in. So
I have a feeling the Backstrom beard will look like that, or the Johansson beard, right?
It'd be wispy. I don't know if you remember the Cheers episode where the guys at the bar try to grow a beard and Cliff Clavin looks like a werewolf. That is the beard I envision for some of these guys.
Ooh,
sadly, yeah,
exactly. Hey, man, you want me to beat up the Redskins on the way out, or you got anything?
Why not?
Do you have any defense or anything to say in regard to what a dumpster fire their off season has been?
It's not been an ideal situation. I mean, we've seen everything and anything. It's almost to the point where they're almost to, I think Bill Simmons referred to it as the Mike Tyson zone, where if you woke up and you read, oh, Mike Tyson did anything, rode a panda down Fifth Avenue, you'd say, oh, okay, whatever. Nothing like if they said, hey, the Washington Redskins have announced that they've reached a stadium deal with Spokane to play home games there. I'd be okay. Well, I could understand.
Because Dan Snyder's involved, right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing this team or franchise does surprises me. It's a shame for a lot of the people who have really followed this team through thick and thin, more on the thin side. But it's just the problem is that with the way that things have developed, there's been so much focus on the quarterback situation that there are enough holes everywhere else that haven't really been addressed in earnest, that people are going to still be focused on the quarterback situation. They're going to give up 40 points a game. So it should be a fun fall for Skinsanity.
I like that. Skinsanity.
Skinsanity, yeah.
Is that your word, or can I steal that and hashtag it?
Yes, it is. Patent pending.
Skinsanity. I will never not use that. I probably will never credit you with it, but I mean, you did say it first here, so I'm not going to absolutely steal it. I'm just going to borrow it for a little while.
It'd be a good drop for you. I'll just 3, 2, 1. Skinsanity.
Dude, we'll get to the Nationals Orioles things. They'll be playing soon enough, and we'll have plenty of time. We do plenty of Orioles and Nationals around here. It's early in the year. It's just, I guess, really in D.C., it's hard to focus on anything else other than the Caps and the Wizards because it's sitting right in front of you, and this doesn't happen every year, as we've discussed, and this won't be happening every year into the future.
No, it won't, because it's amazing how old, you look at John Wall. He's getting up in age to the point where this is probably like peak John Wall. He's 27, 28. He's no longer going to be peak John Wall.
And it feels like he just got here, right? I mean, it's crazy, right?
Right, yeah. Unfortunately, they've had enough missteps, and I think, thank goodness they brought in Scott Brooks at this time, because the Randy Whitman befuddled sitcom dad expression during post-game press conferences was kind of getting a little bit thin. But it's again, one hopes that the Wizards and the Caps both get to the Final Four. It would be awesome that we wouldn't have to look back to the Redskins of the 90s to remember the last time a team got to the point where they were playing for a spot to play for a championship.
Going to be an interesting couple of weeks around here. Dave, always good to visit with you. I'm sure I'll see you ice side, court side, something side down there, and I'm going to get intimate with some of the restaurants in and around Verizon Center. I have a feeling I'll be spending, hopefully, most of May down there at various points, but going to be a great run. We're going to have a lot of fun with this thing, and hope to bring the goblet and the chalice up here to Baltimore on a boat and drink really bad champagne out of it with Trotzy.
That'd be nice, Nestor. Regardless, we'll see you in May when the Nats and O's play.
We shall celebrate. He is Dave Preston at WTOP. He is Dav Presto out on Twitter as well as at WTOP.com, covering all things DC sports. Yes, I met it off with the Caps. Yes, we'll be watching the Wizards. Certainly, Luke will be with the Orioles, and all of that available for you at WNST.net. Anything you miss here, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you are. It's all brought to you by BuyAToyota.com. The morning newspaper comes to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. There's one right around the corner from you, and it's still $10 a month to get in bikini shape, and at least we had a little bikini weather here to start the week, which I'm all for, except when it's melting the ice. Morning newspaper at 7 a.m. That's an awesome thing. Last but never least, the breaking news always happens first on the WNST Tech Service. Getting up on the Ravens draft in a couple of weeks. The Orioles shuttling players back and forth. If there's big news, you get it first on the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And don't forget, Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5 doing the WNST SSV on WNST. That's the Sunday Sports Voice. Now heard on Thursdays from 3 until 5. We've got our Ravens road trips. We're waiting for next week for Green Bay and Nashville and Minnesota and Oakland. We've got our trip to London on sale for September 24th. Join us. All aboard. We're not flying United. There's my little kick in the nuts for United here this week. Everybody else is piling on. Why shouldn't I? We will not drag you off the aircraft. We will take you to London. We're going to have a good time over there. Hopefully beat up on the Jaguars as well. $100 off for anyone that wants to join us in London. We've taken 18,000 people over 25 years now on our WNST road trips. Very proud of that. Love to have you join us on any of our trips. Green Bay, Nashville, but that's all coming next week. London on sale now. You can always email me. I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.